Hey guys, first I want to say a quick thank you so much for your continued support. The channel has now hit over 2,000 subscribers. When I started on this journey about 6 months ago, this is not exactly where I thought this channel will get to, but I just want to say that because of your support and your likes, your subscriptions and everything that you've done up to this point, we've been able to hit a milestone that's way ahead of where we thought we would be. So I'm very grateful for this. So as you can tell, I'm very moved and grateful for your continued support, and I will continue to obviously do my best to continue to make as much content as possible as long as it continues to help you folks out there. Thank you again so much. And with that out of the way, let's start the video. So in my last video, we discussed if we're in fact headed into a recession. Today is towards the end of September, and ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, since then, there have been even more signs that are pointing towards the inevitability of a recession in 2023. We've been in a bear market for what feels like forever, and as of September, the S&P is now down 25% year to date. The challenging macro environment and the Fed's rate hikes that are supposed to try and lower inflation have fueled a lot of market uncertainty and ugly stock performance in this bear market. And everyone is basically like, enough already, when does this end? Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think things now are more likely to get a bit worse before they improve. So for the next 10 minutes, I want to talk about 3 reasons why we just got closer to a recession. So please stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back. It's Phil from Build My ROI, where we empower you with the mindset and financial skills that you need to build and grow your wealth. If you're new here, make sure you click that subscribe button and like and share this video if you find value in our content. Let's dive in. Here's what we know as of September 2022. The CPI, which measures overall inflation, is at 8.3% as of the latest August reading, down from a high of 9.1% earlier in June of this year. The Fed has just raised interest rates again by 75 basis points, which is the 3rd consecutive time it's done this and totally unprecedented. And now the Fed funds rate is in the 3.25% range. The 10-year is over 3.5% and the 2-year is over 4%. And when we look at the housing market, that's effectively in a correction, if not already in a recession in many parts of the country. So that's the backdrop of the current economic environment. But before we delve into all these data points and topics, first, we have to talk about FedEx. Yes, FedEx as in FDX. Here we go. On September 15th, FedEx pre-announced a decline in its earnings and withdrew its forecast or guidance really for 2022, citing weakening global demand. The stock was hit hard and declined about 21% on this news. But most alarmingly, FedEx painted a grim outlook of what they're seeing in the markets that they operate in globally and plan to close 90 offices. Now I can hear you asking, Phil, why do we even care about FedEx? In this channel, I stay away from speaking about specific stocks, and that hasn't changed. But first, let me explain why FDX or FedEx is an important factor when we are talking about economic forecasts. FedEx plays a crucial role in what are called the transports, basically stocks of companies in transportation and logistics. This segment of the market historically has been an important leading indicator of what is likely to happen in the broader economy. So FedEx is a key bellwether in this sector and is akin to the proverbial canary in a coal mine. And in its performance is closely watched by Wall Street as it could portend to what happens to the broader market in the near future. So the way to think about this is interstate and global commerce is driven through networks of large transports like FedEx, and any decline or expansion in the economy will first be detected or reflected on what's happening in commerce on these markets, and especially with FedEx, which is considered basically the bellwether. So FDX earnings and forecasts actually are an early warning sign that tells us about what is happening or likely to happen in the broader economy. Therefore, with underwhelming FedEx earnings or withdrawal of 2022 earnings, or any negative news about what's happening in the global economy being on the table, that's decisively negative. And the CEO going on record saying that a global recession is on the table in 2023 is very alarming. So we have to take this as an important data point as we look to understand where we are headed here in the next 3 to 6 months. Number 2, the Fed has now raised interest rates by 75 basis points 3 times in a row this year. And in that time, CPI has declined to 8.3% as of the most recent August reading. This modest decline of the CPI, driven by the Fed's increase of Fed's funds rate, shows the magnitude of the challenge that Chairman Powell and the Fed in general are faced with. The CPI data is backward looking, and the effects from this latest September rate hike really won't be reflected into the economy or even fully absorbed for another 6 to 9 months. The reality though is that this data is a lagging indicator and therefore isn't that useful in telling us how much there is to come. So we have to ask ourselves, what else is the Fed doing? Now, although the Fed's primary tool, as we know, is for monetary policy, as we know, is the Fed's funds rate, it's also been reducing the size of its balance sheet. And starting in June this year, the Fed started reducing its Treasury security holdings by about $30 billion and its mortgage-backed securities by $17.5 billion on a monthly basis. This accelerated in September to $60 billion in Treasury securities and $35 billion in MBSs. The net effect of this reduction obviously is to lower money supply and thus put upward pressure on rates, further slowing down the economy. But the real question is this, is whether we will really be able to avoid a recession and if all these actions that the Fed is taking are going to result sort of in the proverbial soft landing. The difference this time compared to previous times when the Fed was raising rates since the 1990s is the level of inflation when the Fed started taking action to slow down the economy. This time around, the Fed has started raising rates when inflation was already over 8%, which wasn't the case in recent soft landing scenarios. So this is one of the main challenges that they face, and in hindsight makes it appear like the Fed really waited too long to start their rate hike process. You know, I like Chairman Powell and how he has managed the economy through the pandemic and hope he can really slow things down without triggering a recession. But honestly, I think it's going to be very difficult, if not really impossible at this point. And hopefully it's already not too late, but most likely it is. And then number 3, let's talk about global inflation. The increase in inflation and the deteriorating economic conditions that we are seeing in the US is also happening across many countries around the world. Inflation globally has been driven by the same factors we've been talking about on this channel. Commodity and energy inflation, partly driven by acute increases in demand, sort of post the COVID pandemic. Food and energy and commodity price increases, which have been exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine war, and easy monetary policies by central banks globally during the pandemic that are now being reversed in, the current tightening cycle that we are seeing across these same banks. Finally, we've also been seeing that China's economy has been slowing down this year, and in that economy in particular, they have been having massive problems in its sort of over-leveraged housing market that are now contributing to a global slowdown and likely pockets of recession in many other countries around the world. So the picture is really not looking good for many economies globally. The World Bank actually just released a report essentially saying that the global economy will experience its steepest decline in growth since the 1970s. And given significant declines in Europe, China, and the US, they conclude that the likelihood of a global recession to be avoided at this point is quite low. I'll put a link to this report in the description box below, and hopefully you can download it and take a look at it. So based on these developments, it seems likely that we are edging ever closer to a recession, if already not in one. We have to continue watching the data, but I am now expecting that the data is going to reflect the new reality, that although a potential recession is not entirely imminent, it's very or highly likely at this point for 2023. So with that, I want to thank you again for tuning in, and thank you again for your continued support. We're at over 2,000 subscribers and we're only getting stronger. Thank you. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content or learned something from it. I'm working on more content and obviously more videos, so do leave a comment if there's any particular topic in investing or personal finance that you would like me to cover. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace and love.